Yo, what's up guys, it's your boy Sami here. Today we are gonna see, what if Naruto had the power of Geass, part 1. Hope you'll enjoy this video. So before we start, please subscribe to our channel, and like this video. So let's get into the video. In all honesty, he had forgotten how long he had been in his sealed slumber. The events of the long past Fourth Shinobi War merely a fleeting memory that he recalled occasionally, when not watching over the world from within the tree he sealed himself away in. Truthfully, he was upset with how the world progressed. The peace he had built after slowly taking back chakra throughout the generations had been shattered, and wars were commonplace in the world. War had also evolved over the years, and gotten even deadlier to the point nations fought with massive mechanical beings called nightmares to conquer nations. The biggest contributor to the wars around the world was the nation of Britannia, a nation that was dead set on spreading their control to all corners of the globe. They were also the most obsessed with the power he had created accidentally in the absence of chakra, called Geass. He didn't know exactly how it was created, crediting its creation more to evolution sparked accidentally through him than solely him by choice, but after the first person had tampered with his tree, a spark had been made, and birthed in him, and eventually others. Geass itself was rather unique, as no two Geass, so far, were alike, and even those relatively close had different stipulations, and rules to how they were used. It all really started with one person who gained the power of a code, which allowed them to give grass to others, as a contract or just a gift. As the code bearer let it spread to a select few, he found himself able to recognize and follow every being given a grass or code from within his tree. Thankfully, only two codes could exist at one time, and since they were given out, he had quickly made it where contact would stop granting Geass to those who touched his tree. The Geass order, a group birthed after one's desire to control and collect more Geass, was troublesome and annoying to him. They were always trying to harness his power by either removing pieces of his tree or trying to absorb the energy around it. Each time they tried to take too much, though, he hardened the tree to break their tools or overcharged their devices to break them. He could feel the location of every bit of his tree as they transported it around. He did his best to keep the entirety of his tree safe in its resting place. He had forgotten how many times they had broken off pieces of his tree, but before it had first started to, even now, as they moved pieces around, he found himself someone to talk with. It had surprised him at first, as only one other being had been able to speak to him, so when the green-haired woman had first spoken to him, he was glad to have someone to talk to. Over the years he had gotten close to her, she has enjoyed his presence, and he enjoyed hers, as well. She made him want to wake up, but she always told him not to. She always told him how she wanted to keep him safe from the world, and the evil in it, despite him wanting to do the same for her. But lately their talks had been different, as Britannia had captured her, and were experimenting on her, as well. It made him upset, wanting to help her, but she always assured him she'd be fine. As they once again moved a part of his tree to the next research location, since he overloaded and blew up the last container it was in, he couldn't help but frown as they transported her away, as well. He disliked it when they were separated too far away, and worried about her despite her immortality. He struggled to keep himself restrained, as he felt countless innocent lives get slain around him, but a smirk came to his face, as he left Geass being granted to another by her. I know you want me to stay out of it, but I refuse. If you plan to involve yourself, then so do I. He spoke telepathically with a smile, as he opened his eyes to reveal a pair of clear blue eyes. Japan Area 11 Shinjuku Ghetto. Getting out of his tree was rather easy, as he was able to use the piece they were transporting as a doorway of sorts. Knocking out the drivers was easy enough, and he made sure to reabsorb the piece of his tree before leaving the truck with the destination of CC in mind. CC was the woman he had talked to for so long. Of course, CC wasn't her real name, and while he did know her real name and have used it a few times, he felt like only using it when the mood fit. Plus, he wanted to wait for her okay before he said her name out loud, now that he was out in the world again. As he made his way through the ruins of the Shinjuku Ghetto, as he heard others call it, he found himself sticking out a bit like a sore thumb. Wearing a white kimono with black trim, as it was the last thing he wore before sealing himself away, was quite conspicuous. That, and his blonde spiky hair stuck out in every direction, and defying gravity with two bangs that framed his face, made him easy to notice in the grey landscape of the ruined city. Still, as he walked through the city towards where he felt CC, he couldn't help but frown at the dead bodies all around. These Britannians mercilessly kill innocents. Even back in the day, we kept to only fighting the opposing soldiers and sparring innocents. The fact they kill innocents even this long after having conquered this land is sad to see, the man thought, as he saw bodies of men, women, elderly, and children around him. As he arrived in the warehouse CC was lying in, he clenched his fists in anger, as he saw more dead bodies of parents failing to try to shield their children, as said children clung to stuffed animals, and various adults, teens, and elderly. He tried not to look too much, as he crouched down in front of CC, gently picking her up in a bridal carry, as she was still recovering from the bullet wound to her head. He found her straitjacket-like outfit interesting, as he carefully carried her out of the warehouse. CC was a woman who had, what he felt to be, an otherworldly beauty to her with long waist, long light green hair, and a pair of golden amber eyes, albeit they were closed currently. Her figure was rather easily made out with the tight straitjacket type outfit she wore, her sleeves and ends of the pants being the only loose parts of it, and allowed him to make out her low C-cup chest, and rather bubbly rear. He chose to go somewhere where they wouldn't be noticed, finding a nice rooftop on a building away from any potential fighting. As he let her lay there, her head on his lap, he could only frown, as he petted her while he continued to feel her life get erased like a candle's flame. "This is why I didn't want you to leave your tree," Naruto CC said, her voice sounding more melodious in person, as she looked up at him with her amber eyes looking into his blue ones. The sound of his name from her lips sounded even more amazing in person, as well, which made him smile down at her softly. "I know, but I couldn't just sit by any longer. This," he said, as he motioned to the landscape in front of him, "is too much. I've had to restrain myself for too long already, and my limit has already been long since past. I guess you're the reason I haven't left before now," he said, brushing a lock of her hair off from her face, before she quickly grabbed his hand and kept it against her face. "I'm sorry this is a sight you had to see first thing after returning to the world," she said, a frown on her face, as he shook his head. "You make up for it all, as you are more amazing in person," he said, smiling at the ever so light blush on her face, as she tried to keep her emotions hidden. "We should leave, I'm sure we can find somewhere to stay," CC said, as she stood up, his hand still in hers, as he stood up with her. "I want to help a bit, save as many as I can before I do what I have in mind. I sadly need to wait until they are done before I do it," though Naruto said with a bit of a frown, as CC raised an eyebrow at it, but nodded, deciding to go along with it. As she knew if he had something in mind it would be interesting. "Stay here, my clone will stay with you, and keep you from being noticed," he said, as a version of himself appeared beside her, making her smile, as she hugged its arm. "Multiple versions of yourself. The girl could have fun with what she teased, as he chuckled, and created a black-hooded cloak to wear over his outfit to keep him disguised. "Well, try not to do too much with it, as I'd much rather you play with the real me," he teased back before he put the cloak over him, using chakra to make it cling to him, as he dropped off the building, and started to make his way through the crumbling city. He was unnoticed mainly, as CC's contractor had taken out a lot of the opposing forces through his strategies. Though once a white nightmare joined the fray things started to go differently. "Well, might as well ensure our new contractor isn't taken out too early," he thought, as he hopped up onto a fallen nightmare, as he saw a red one with only one arm rush by, smirking, as he noticed where she was heading. Running a hand over the large robot, his eyes briefly flashed red before the left arm of it popped off, and he effortlessly picked it up, and rested it on his shoulder like one would a massive sword. "I do wonder how fighting one without one would go," he thought with a chuckle, as he darted off quickly, catching up to the red nightmare, just as it attacked the white one. "Hey. I'm returning the favor." The girl's voice spoke to the blue nightmare, which he knew held their new contractor. "Ha, well, isn't that nice of you? Jumping in to save the person who has helped and save you," Naruto said, as he appeared on the red nightmare's shoulder, the spare nightmare arm still on his shoulder. As everyone froze a bit in shock from the sight of a human carrying something like that like it was nothing. "Here, allow me to help," he added, as he held a hand out towards the white nightmare. Shinra Tensei spoke before the white nightmare was shot back and out of the rubble of a building. "Who the hell are you?" Colin Kazuki asked, unsure who the hell this man was, as well as how the hell he sent the white nightmare flying. With how this white nightmare had taken out all her friends, she fully expected to have to eject to give the man who had been giving them orders time to escape. But now she was more shocked at how a stranger had sent it flying, while holding his Sutherland's arm on his shoulder, while he stood on her nightmare's shoulder. A friend, simple, as that, Naruto said, as he moved the arm down, clicked it in place on the empty arm joint, as his eyes flashed red again, making the arm sync up with a bit of help from his Asur path, through merging with the nightmare within a fraction of a second. He smiled, as he felt the contractor speed off given the window he created before he hopped off the red nightmare's shoulder, and looked back at it. "You should probably leave too, help your friends, and get all that you can safely out of here. Protect those hiding out, and do as much as you can to save as many lives as you can. Pick up a gun or two from Sutherland along the way," he said, as he started to walk off towards where he sent the white nightmare flying. "Okay, what about you?" Colin asked, still in shock from him carrying a nightmare arm like it was nothing paired with attaching a Sutherland arm onto her, and making it able for her to move it. "I'm going to keep the white nightmare busy. I've always wondered how it would be to fight one," he replied, as he started to walk away again, disappearing in a burst of speed before she could call out to him. As he reappeared in front of the white nightmare, he picked up the wire of his Harken, as well as one without a wire to give him something to fight with, given he lost the giant arm he had been lugging around. "Why do you fight?" Naruto asked, as he started to spin the Harken around, picking up speed, as the white nightmare got back up, the other Harken becoming like a pair of brass knuckles in his left hand. "I fight to stop them from fighting." To stop bloodshed, Suzaku Kurugi said bluntly, unsure who or what this man was to send the Lancelot flying away, and carrying around a Sutherland arm like it was nothing, while Naruto raised an eyebrow at it, although it was hidden from view due to his hood. Stop bloodshed by fighting for the oppressors. That wouldn't do anything in the long run, boy, especially for oppressors who mercilessly slaughter innocents like it is nothing, Naruto said, as he quickly swung the slash Harken at the nightmare. The user reacting fast to grab it, which allowed Naruto to pull, drawing himself toward the nightmare before hitting it in the arm head with a strong left hook before it let him go and sped back a bit. He couldn't help but smile to himself a bit as he left a large dent in his forearm. You don't have to do this. Stand down. I don't want to hurt you, but you are out of your league, he said, as Naruto chuckled with a smirk, finding his words to be rather funny given the situation. So is that why you backpedaled away from me? Naruto asked, as he started walking towards him. And yes, I do have to do this, especially when you are fighting against those who are trying to stop a massacre, Naruto said, as he dashed forward towards the nightmare, appearing on his arm. The wire wrapping around its wrist before he slammed the slash Harken in his left hand into the dent on its arm, deepening it even more. With the slash Harken having been forced deeper into his forearm, he quickly pulled, severing its right arm, due to how much he was able to drive into it. He quickly jumped back before the other arm could grab him, taking its severed arm with him, and switched the slash Harken with the wire attached to his left hand, as the one he had been using, as a set of brass knuckles was embedded in the stump of the white nightmare. What are you? Who are you? Suzaku asked, shocked and worried at how fast he had gotten onto his arm, and tore it off, as well as by the face he was now holding like it was nothing. He had just gotten this nightmare, and I am someone determined to stop the invaders and oppressors from continuing their onslaught, and you are the only one in the way right now from the continuation of the murder of those living in this city, Naruto said, as he pointed its hand back at him, making the nightmare's hand point at him. Suzaku felt unsure what to do, as normally nightmares fought other nightmares, not insanely strong men wielding a slash Harken like a whip, and his own nightmare's arm. Suzaku, what is going on? How is that man able to injure my sweet Lancelot like that? Lloyd yelled, appearing on screen, visibly angered, and on the verge of fainting from the footage of that man breaking his baby's arm like this. I don't know. He's faster than the sensors could follow, and his hits were as strong as the nightmares. I need to get away from him and finish taking down the other nightmares, Suzaku said, as Cecil nodded on screen. You had better retreat, Suzaku. Fighting him won't do you any good, considering he isn't a normal human. Retreat, and do all you can to evade him if he follows. The terrorists are retreating, as well after your attack. For a first run you aided the military greatly, she assured him, as Suzaku nodded, and spun around to drive off away from the man. Naruto smiled, as he ran off, absorbing the nightmare's arm into his kami dimension, as he decided to see if he could help any survivors get to the safety of wherever the red nightmare user was. As he returned to CC, seeing her laying her head on the lap of his clone before she sat up, and, as the clone dispelled, motioned for him to sit where it once was. Nightmares are both fascinating and frightening, wouldn't you agree, CC? The power they allow others to wield is impressive, but it distances those in it from their actions, so his pilots feel no burden of their actions, Naruto told her, as he sat down for her before she laid on his lap, and CC looked up at him with a raised eyebrow. Are you going to look into getting your own? CC asked, glad that he was back so soon, and still was letting her lay on his lap, as she knew Naruto wasn't the kind to sit on the sidelines. Possibly, but it all depends on where the path of your news contractor takes us. He had some trouble today, but did rather well, Naruto said, as he looked at CC with a smirk, petting her head softly, as she smiled contentedly at it. We shall see, as I have high hopes for him, she said before she frowned a bit. Also, why are you calling me CC when you know my real name, she asked, as he rubbed the back of his head with a slight frown. I didn't know if you wanted me to in the real world, and personally, I'd like to call you your name somewhere more meaningful for the first time in the real world, he said, giving her hand a squeeze, as she smiled. And rolled her eyes before resting her head back on his lap while she kept her head on his lap. You're an odd man, I swear, but I will admit that is sweet. You can call me my name in private if you wish, she said with a smirk, as they continued to watch the scene in front of them. It wasn't until, as the sun started to set, that the soldiers were suddenly ordered to retreat and stop the bloodshed by Clovis, the man who was in charge of Area 11. Do you think he had something to do with this? Naruto asked, as a sudden retreat wasn't the Britannian way of doing things. Especially since the White Nightmare had turned the tide, and wiped out the terrorists Lelouch had commanded before he got involved, and made it retreat. No doubt, but now that the fight is over, what do you plan to do? CC asked, as Naruto gently stood up, making her sit up, as he looked at her with a smile, his eyes changing from their dazzling blue to the red intricate design that radiated power in their gaze. First I am going to return the lives lost, Naruto said, as he did the two-hand signs for it, furrowing his brow, as he focused on reaching out for the souls of the Japanese lost in the recent massacre. Samsara of heavenly life, Naruto commanded, as the king of hell rose behind him, and drew forth the souls inside it. CC watched in awe as she looked at the figure behind Naruto, it clearly not being human, as its purple ringed eyes looked at her before it opened its mouth widely, allowing her to see the glowing green insides of it. She continued to watch, as numerous orbs of green light shot out of it, flying into the ghetto in front of them. As long as the bodies aren't completely destroyed or too severely damaged, the souls can return and rejuvenate their bodies, Naruto said before the King of Hell disappeared behind him. CC quickly went to catch him, as he almost fell from having his legs start to buckle. Are you okay? Why did you decide to revive them? She asked, as she knew how much he honored the flow of life, so to revive them seemed out of character. Because their lives were taken by monsters, I refuse to let innocent lives be erased like this, Naruto said, as he stood back up and steadied himself. I'm not done yet, I still have something to do, Naruto said, making CC frown and looking worriedly at him. What more do you plan to do? CC asked, as she personally thought reviving hundreds of lost lives was already enough. Simple, as I don't exist in the eyes of the modern world, I intend to give myself a standing and an identity, Naruto said, as he looked up to the moon that was growing brighter due to the sun setting. I wouldn't go too far, just make it where no one questions the lack of proof behind it, and to make it where I have some standing, Naruto said, as CC watched in awe, as the design of his eyes appeared on the moon. Plus I plan to erase the experience of dying from those that died, and make it where the Britannians don't question things, and just think people move back in after they cleaned it up. Britannians, and others will still know of the deaths, but those that died will not remember, what Naruto said, as he kept his focus on the moon above him. This is a lot to do, is it really necessary? CC asked, as Naruto nodded with a soft smile. This will keep them safe, and let them live on. I feel it must be done. The memories of one's death are not something they should be burdened with, Naruto said, as the design solidified on the moon. Kotomatsukami, Naruto whispered, as CC watched the moon pulse red before the design slowly faded away. She quickly went in to catch Naruto again, as his legs actually gave out this time. Sorry about that, so many years of being sealed away tends to mess with my chakra control, and two big techniques like these are a bit much, Naruto said, as CC shook her head to show it wasn't any bother. We should find somewhere to stay for now, get out of the ghetto, and maybe a hotel that we can stay at after putting some people under an illusion, Naruto added, as CC helped him walk down from the ruined building. The people of this ghetto will wake in the morning alive, and well before leaving the area, until the military undoubtedly finishes cleaning up, and will return once they are done. That is the command I left them in, Naruto said, while CC nodded, albeit with a slight frown from this sounding like a bit much. But will it be any better for them? To be living again, that is. Especially seeing their living conditions, CC said, as Naruto smiled and nodded, as he looked up at the moon again. To live means to persevere and grow, to have your life stolen from you by someone who doesn't consider you of any worth is a terrible fate. I will have clones of mine go through and fix things, clean up the blood, and maybe set some things up for them once we get to a hotel. To the people of this ghetto the Britannians attacked, and they barely escaped death with some dying in the attack, and the Britannians will think the people returning are new Japanese people, Naruto said, as they continued to walk through the dark streets of the ghetto. Leaning against CC, who helped him stand up beside her. You truly are an interesting man, CC said with a smile, as they continued on, finding his kindness to be very different than anything else currently within the world right now. It wasn't hard to find a hotel, and get a room for them to stay in for the night with an illusion casted by Naruto. Once in the room, CC quickly claimed the shower, stripping out of her white outfit on the way to the shower, as he laid on the bed, and stared up at the ceiling. He had already sent his disguised clones out to help fix up the Shinjuku ghetto, and prepare things, so those left alive would be safe when they woke up. He contemplated setting things up in the other ghettos, but decided that would be something he'd have to do later. Clones would make it rather simple to accomplish, but would require some planning beforehand. So what is the plan now? Kurama asked, getting him out of his thoughts, as the Biju had been mainly silent until now when he could talk to them easier. They were still by his side, willing to stay with him in his sleep, as with how the world turned out they were glad they stayed with him. Rest, and get my footing first. I really don't like Britannia, so if anything I might have to get back up to speed, and get back on the battlefield for real. I need to work on my chakra more, as it's gotten a bit stagnant, so my control is shot for now, Naruto thought, as he let out a sigh. I'll try my best not to bother you all too much, he said, as the Biju chuckled at him. Naruto, you are our ally and friend. If you want us to help, we are completely willing to fight alongside you, just like we did in the last war you fought in, Jayuki said, while the others agreed with him. Plus, with CC possibly being involved in things with her recent contractor, we know there is no way you will sit back, Naru-chan Matatabi teased in good faith, as the Biju all knew of his relationship with CC, and was quite happy to see him be interested in someone again after having been sealed away. True, though I figured her contract might change, as she only planned to die, so that she could join me where I was. We'll see how things go, but I do know I will find a way to combat Britannia, he thought before he sat up, as he heard the bathroom door open to show CC walking out in Omitel. Naruto couldn't help but blush a bit as she walked towards him, CC not being at all shy about how much skin she was showing to him. Oh my, even considering how long you have been around you get flustered at this. CC teased, holding the edge of her towel, and tugging at it a bit to show a bit more cleavage. Well, it's not like I use my ability to see any, and everything I wanted back inside my tree to peep or anything, he said, blushing a bit as she sat next to him and wrapped her arms around his arm. The silence that followed wasn't awkward, but more content and comfortable, her enjoying being beside him and being here at this moment. It made him smile and rested his head against hers, entwining his fingers in hers as she kept one arm hugging him. You remember what I told you when you first were given your code and you were afraid of being alone? He asked, looking over at her as she looked up at him and nodded. You said you'd stay by my side and ensure I'm never alone, CC said as she squeezed his hand softly. I was afraid at first from being immortal and undying, I wanted to die, but you've made me want to live, and now fix the actions of the other code bearer, CC added, making him smile, as he gently took his hand from hers and cupped her cheek. We'll deal with VV later, and everything. For now let's just rest and recover before we make our way to your most recent contract, he said before she smiled and leaned forward, allowing their lips to meet as they enjoyed their first kiss. CC had lost the desire for love after her Geass had ruined it for her in the past, but once she was alone, immortal with her code, she met him. He was a voice she could talk to, and someone she could see. He wasn't affected by her past, and he grew on her quickly. She didn't want him to deal with the ugliness of the world, and was the reason why she even agreed to work with Vivi and Charles, as she believed it would allow her to be beside him without him being out here. But now she was with him, and for now that all mattered. As they broke the kiss, CC couldn't help but smile as she looked up at him as he looked into her eyes. I never break my promises, and I intend to settle things so we can be together, Cecilia. I swear to you, he said, using her real name that sent a shiver down her spine that made her smile deepen. I never thought hearing my name from you would sound so wonderful, she whispered out, slight tears collecting in the corners of her eyes, before she leaned up to kiss him again, sliding her hands down to his waist to undo the sash around it. But I want more, as you have me here and nothing, and I intend to enjoy you, she whispered out, her voice having a purr to it before she pushed him down onto the bed before straddling his lap. Naruto's face was dark red, as Cecilia looked down at him, a mischievous smirk on her face, as she held onto the top of her towel. As the towel dropped, he couldn't look away, as Cecilia's naked body was in full view in front of him. Personally, Cecilia was a bit self-conscious of her body, the scar under her left breast, that resembled a Geass sigil being something she didn't like being seen, but to Naruto she didn't care. She was content showing him everything, as he was all too important to her, and the scar itself showed her that she was immortal, and could stand by his side. Cecilia let out a soft gasp, as she felt his hands grasp her waist, while he gently looked up at her. You are beautiful, he whispered out, making her smile before she leaned down to him for another kiss which quickly evolved into something spectacular. Next day. As they left the hotel, Naruto was thankful for Cecilia's help in thinking up clothes to make, as he didn't really keep his attention to fashion while he was in his seal, and his kimono, as much as he liked it, stood out too much. With Cecilia's help, he had decided on a pair of black sneakers, baggy dark blue jeans, a dark orange long-sleeve shirt, and a sleeveless black jacket that had a white fur-lined hood. He didn't have any need to hide anything about him, as the Britannian government knew not what he truly was. To them he was just a citizen who, if they looked him up, his Kodomatsukami would make them see he was of slight noble standing. It was nothing to make him stick out too much, but just enough for them not to question him. For CC, she had personally decided on a pair of black mid-calf high boots, a black kneeling skirt, and a black and dark gray striped shirt with an off-shoulder neckline that had sleeves long enough to cover her hands. She had also decided on a dark gray beret to wear to help hide her hair a bit, although he had created a henge tag to turn her green hair to dark red for the time being, as the color, despite how much she liked it, did make her stick out quite a bit. And red was less uncommon compared to green, which could make certain people recognize her. So where should we go from here? Cecilia asked, as they snacked on some leftover pizza they had ordered last night, that they bought with some money he had acquired via a quick lottery ticket, which showed his luck with stuff like this was still alive. We could check out your contractor, as we can both feel where he is. Staying close to him could be best, and it'd help us get involved with him easier if you want, he said, as he already knew about Lelouch, the son of the King of Britannia, who had made a contract with Cecilia. It also didn't help that Charles was the brother of the other code bearer named VV. If he was going to take care of that brat, and his plans sticking close to Lelouch would fit best. I guess that could work, but how are you going to explain yourself? Cecilia asked, as Naruto shrugged his shoulders. If I have to, I'll say I'm another contractor of yours, and I'm here to help since I don't want to spill everything about myself, and would rather keep it hidden. He said, as his ninja training made him always try to keep his skills and powers hidden until there came a time to show them. Plus it would take way too long to explain it all if he did tell the boy. That works, as I understand. I'm sure we can work something out when we see where he is staying, Cecilia said while they continued through the city and into the Tokyo settlement. As they arrived, Naruto was a bit surprised to see a private school as their destination. Ashford Academy guessed this could be interesting, as where else for me to learn about the new era I am in than a school, he thought out loud before looking at Cecilia. So what do you think about being a schoolgirl? He asked, making Cecilia smile and lift her skirt a bit. I hope their uniform is cute, she said, curious as to how they looked, linking her arm with his before they headed past the front gates. Halt, what are you doing here? The guard said, as they stopped with a frown. We are looking into enrolling. I was told to walk in and asked to talk to the principal of this academy, Naruto said before the guard looked unsure at them. What are your names? The man asked, holding his radio in his hand. My name is Naruto Uzumaki, and this is Mito Senju, Naruto said, thinking up a cover name for Cecilia. He primarily decided on the wife of Hashirama, since using the name of someone he knew better from his past felt a bit odd given his relationship with Cecilia. Stay right here, I'll radio the principal to see what he wants to do, the guard said before he walked a bit off to the side, saying something into his radio after he waited a bit before he returned. Okay, you can come in. Just head down this main road and you'll reach the school's main building. Ask directions to the principal's office, the guard said, as they nodded and continued on. Do you think he'll actually accept us in? This is a private academy, and a prestigious one after all, Cecilia said, as Naruto nodded, but gave a so-so hand gesture. We'll see, I think he will, and if not, a simple illusion will help. Well, I personally don't like messing with others like this, it won't be that invasive, he said before they reached the main building and headed inside. Hi there, we were told to come here to seek admission to this school. Can you offer us directions to the principal's office? He asked the secretary at the front desk while she looked up at them with a smile. Of course, it's the only office on the 3rd floor. He's waiting for you, she said before the two of them started to head up to the 3rd floor. Wow, such a warm welcome, are you sure you didn't go too overboard with your Kodamatsukami? Cecilia asked, as he shrugged his shoulders. I don't think I did, as I only did enough for people not to bug me honestly. The man could just be nice and welcoming, Naruto said, a bit unsure of himself, before they reached the 3rd floor and knocked on the principal's office door. Come on, and a voice spoke out, as he opened the door to see a kind-looking man smiling at them from behind his desk. Welcome to, I am Reuben K. Ashford, the principal of Ashford Academy. Please sit down, he said, motioning to the 2 chairs in front of his desk. I do have to say it's not every day 2 people just walk in to be enrolled. Normally you would have been turned away due to a strict enrollment process we normally go through, but you, Naruto Uzumaki, was it? Reuben asked, as Naruto nodded. To have the son of a noble that is rising in ranks back in the homeland is welcome, and I figure Mito here is your beloved. He questioned, making Cecilia smile a bit and nod. Yes, I am. His father sent me with him to ensure he focuses on his studies, she said, sending him a teasing smirk that made him roll his eyes with a smirk of his own. Does this mean you are welcoming us to your school? She asked, as Reuben nodded with a smile. Of course, I'll set you up for regular classes, and your dorm rooms, he said before Cecilia held up her hand with a bit of a frown. Actually, you see, we are friends of Lelouch, and would like to request housing near him, if that is reasonable, Cecilia said, making Reuben slightly white in his eyes, and frown a bit. Do not worry, my father was close to his mother, as he helped her from the shadows, which is why his family wasn't brought down. We know of his situation, and have no intention of endangering him, and if anything we plan to ensure they are never found out, Naruto said, having been filled in a bit by a certain someone he'd have to talk more to when he got the time. Is your father's family the only one who knows of them, and where they are? Reuben asked, his cheerful look turned serious, as Naruto nodded. My dad and mom were the only 2 who know, and they in turn told us when we traveled here. Please, we only mean to help keep them hidden, Naruto said, as Reuben sighed, entwining his hands in front of him, as he was stuck in thought before he nodded. You 2 will have rooms prepared in the clubhouse for the student council. This will mean you both will join that club, and I will make things aware to my granddaughter who is the current president of it, he said before he pressed a button on his intercom. Yes, what is it, sir? The secretary asked before he pressed the button again. Can you call for Millie, please? The 2 new students will be joining the student council, and will need a guide around school. Also, please ready a male and female uniform for the 2 of them, he said before letting the button go, allowing the secretary to respond. Of course, right away she responded, as Reuben looked at them. You 2 won't begin classes until tomorrow, but you can start with your club work today if Millie decides so. If that's okay with the both of you, he said, as Naruto nodded and smiled. Sounds great, he said, looking forward to how interesting living here would be. Grandfather, I'm here, a female voice said, as the door to the office opened to reveal a rather beautiful woman. The woman had blonde hair that went down a bit to the middle of her back, fair skin, and blue eyes. She wore a long-sleeved light yellow jacket with a white shirt underneath that had a green tie looped in the collar, and a short black shirt. The woman was incredibly endowed, easily an eye-cup chest that made the chest of her jacket look like it was about to burst. Millie, perfect timing. Were you close by when you were called? Ruben asked, as she nodded, closing the door behind her with a smile. Yes, grandfather, are these the new students? Millie asked, as her grandfather nodded with a smile, as he motioned towards the two of them. Millie, meet Naruto Uzumaki and Mito Senju. They will be living in the student council clubhouse, and be a part of your club from now on. I hope that is okay, he said, sweat dropping a bit from how Millie was looking over Naruto with an almost predatory glance. Oh, that is more than fine, grandfather. Come, I'll show you around, Millie said with a smile, as they stood up. One more thing, he said, stopping them before they left. They know of Lelouch, so try and introduce them to him sometime later today, he added before Millie nodded, a serious look on her face before they followed her outside. I didn't know there were more that knew of Lulu, especially a noble given how Britannia treated my family after Lady Marianne was killed, she said, looking at him over her shoulder, as she guided them out of the office building. My family was an ally in the shadows for Marianne. When she died tragically, my family's connection to her was still unknown. Personally, neither my parents nor I care about our status, and are mainly keeping it to not stir anything up. The fact we are rising up is not intentional, Naruto said, glad for her seemingly accepting it, as her serious look melted away, and was replaced with a smile. Well then, let me show you two around, she said excitedly, as she started her tour. The academy was rather massive, consisting of numerous buildings, and was incredibly spread out. There were dorms for boys and girls, but they weren't shown, as they would be staying inside the clubhouse. So this is where you will be staying. There are several living spaces in here, as the original intent of this building was for guests visiting the academy. Lelouch and his sister live in the building to the left of the main building, which is the ballroom, so you all can live in the right building, Millie explained, as she showed them to their new housings. Thank you, your grandfather allowing this is really generous, Naruto said, as Cecilia was already scouting out which room to take. My grandfather has always been that kind of man. Look, I'll let you two get settled in, and let you all talk to Lelouch alone, but I was thinking tomorrow when you are introduced to class and officially are members of the council, we can do a welcome party for you with the other student council members, Millie said with an excited smile, as Cecilia walked out from one of the rooms. Will there be food like pizza during this party? She asked, making Millie giggle and nod. Sure, we'll buy a bunch of it, it'll be amazing. I'll drop by later with your uniforms and schedules, she said, as she started to leave before turning back. For now you two should just get settled here. I'll come with Lelouch after school to introduce you to him, but no funny business while you wait, she teased, smirking, as she saw Naruto blush before Mito hugged him from behind. No promises, Cecilia said with a smirk, as she rested her head on his shoulder, looking straight at Millie, whose smirk grew at this. He's already taken. That sad, Millie whined with a pout before she watched Mito send her a look and a come hither gesture with her hand. It piqued her interest, but for the time being she sadly had other things to do. Well, as much as I'd love to stay, I must go. See you all later, Millie sang out before she left, leaving the two of them alone. Did you really have to be like that? He asked, as Cecilia smirked at him. Oh, you know I'm not one to hide things, and I don't care if others know we are together. Plus she seems like an interesting girl, she said, as while she was a bit secretive about herself, there were some things she didn't care if others knew about her. I hope you aren't planning anything weird, he said, as Cecilia merely smirked and wandered off to her room. I'm going to order some pizza, and maybe we can christen your room later before Lelouch is brought over, she said before she stopped and looked back at him. How did you know all that about Marianne and Lelouch's situation? Cecilia asked, since not even she knew everything about it. I told you about the Bijuru and the Shinjuku in the past, right? He asked, as she nodded. Well, it's kind of like that in the way I have a voice telling me things. Though she is different in terms of she's not sealed in me, and is more everywhere and nowhere. I'll introduce you to her later, he said, as he did intend to let the two of them meet, but it was more a case of working out how to make Cecilia aware of her. Even the interesting man isn't you. I look forward to meeting this new informant, she said, as she turned back towards the rooms. I hope you're okay with me using some of the leftover cash we have for some pizza, Cecilia said before he nodded with a smirk, as he knew that look on her face, taking it as a sign she had fallen in love with pizza like he had with Raymond all those years ago. Though that isn't to say he still didn't love the delicious food he had grown up on. Go ahead, as I'm going to work on organizing some things I have stored away, he said, rolling up his sleeves a bit to reveal black markings that covered his forearms. Cecilia perked up a bit at that, but nodded, figuring she'd see his toys sooner or later, as for now her focus was on the delicious new treat she had found for herself. Is it wise to let her meet me when she has a mental connection to not only Vivi, but Marianne? A woman's voice asked, as he entered his new room, the source of it sitting on his new bed on her knees, as she looked at him with only raised eyebrow to show the unsureness on her emotionless face. The woman was unique in every sense of the word, not only in looks, but due to who she was. She had dark pink eyes while her hair was short and black with pink at the ends, only going down past chin length with two longer side bangs that framed her face. Her outfit was a black long-sleeved shirt that had an off-shoulder neckline that was trimmed pink that resembled the sigil of Geass, which resulted in a great deal of cleavage of her mid-C-cup chest. She also wore a pair of tight black pants, a pink sash around her waist, and a pair of mid-thigh-high black boots. The Geass sigil was a recurring theme of her outfit, from her choker around her neck, tops of her boots, as well as the neckline of her shirt. What made her especially unique was that she was essentially the consciousness of the universe given form. She mainly watched, and rarely took action unless she deemed something a danger. It was also near impossible for others to be aware of her, only those with Geass or in his case the Shinju were able to see and talk with her. She technically didn't have a name, either going by caretaker of space-time or dimensional supervisor, but he liked to call her Aurora due to her unique hair. He first met Aurora very shortly after he gained the Shinju's power. She spoke to him of how dangerous the Shinju was, and how it is the only one of its kind, given how the other Otsutsukis only use their Shinju trees to rejuvenate themselves and regain lost power. It wasn't until he proved himself by taking care of Toneri, Momoshiki, and Kanshiki, effectively ending the Otsutsuki clan, did she trust him. She was mainly the one he talked to while in his sealed sleep until Cecilia came along, and was a powerful ally and friend of his. I feel it is, as well it is true she talked with those two in the past. I believe she will cut contact with them, given that I am here, he said, as she looked up at him before nodding. We shall see, but do not forget your promise, she said before Naruto nodded. I have not forgotten my promise to you, Aurora. I still intend to remove the code from Vivi, and take back the grass from those who have been given it for their plans, Naruto said, making Aurora look at him again. And what of this news contractor? Geass is a power greater than what humans should possess. It must be taken back from them. You made my views of humans change, but I still believe they shouldn't be allowed to touch or possess it, Aurora said, making Naruto frown a bit, as he knew her views on humans. At first she thought they had better become extinct, but after their continuous talks, he had gotten her to change her mind from his actions against the threats in the past. She didn't trust all humans fully yet, but she did fully trust him, which she felt was something massively honoring. I shall make an assessment of Lelouch, but I believe he will help allow me to erase the Geass of those out in the world, he told her, making her nod, as she seemingly trusted his judgment. I do have a question for you though, as the all-knowing person you are, he teased, making her tilt her head to the side. Do you know of a good nightmare creator I can use, particularly someone who is against Britannia? He asked, as if he was going to get a nightmare he would need to find someone who made them for a living, and who better to guide him to one than the universe itself. An hour later, Naruto smiled, as he and Cecilia relaxed in their living room, waiting for school to get out with Cecilia's head laying on his lap. She relaxed, as she enjoyed her pizza while he read through some papers he had printed out on someone he might visit later on. So I've been meaning to ask, he said, getting Cecilia to look up at him mid-bite. You aren't going to be talking to Vivi or Marianne anymore, are you? He asked, as personally he somewhat understood a reason to collaborate with them in the past, but with him out of his tree, he figured things were different now. I stopped my collaboration with them when Vivi had Marianne killed, and with you out here with me my reason for helping is non-existent. I ended the connection to them last night before we got to the hotel, so you don't have to worry, she said before reaching up and stroking his cheek until the sound of a knock at their door interrupted them. Naruto, Mito, I hope you're decent, as I brought Lelouch, Millie sang out, as she walked in with a confused boy, growing visibly disappointed as she saw they were on the couch. Aw, and here I was hoping I was going to catch you two doing something interesting. She whined with a pout, as Cecilia sat up, and they got off their couch. Well, sorry to disappoint you, but thanks for bringing Lelouch over, he said, looking towards the boy who was unsure of why he was here. The boy had short black hair and violet eyes. He was somewhat scrawny and tall. He wore the Ashford Academy uniform, as he looked towards the two of them with a frown. Nice to meet you, Lelouch. We will be your roommates for the time being due to Millie's grandfather being kind enough to let us stay here. I am Naruto Uzumaki, and this is what Mito Senju, Naruto said, motioning to Cecilia with a smile, as Millie looked back from him to Lelouch, as if trying to see a reaction, only for Lelouch to nod with a smile. It's nice to meet the two of you. Millie told me you had something to talk to me about besides this, though, he said with a slight frown before Millie nodded. Well, this is where I depart, since, as much as I am one for gossip and dirt, there are things I don't touch, Millie said, Lelouch sending her a soft smile before she seemingly smiled back. I'll drop by tomorrow morning with the uniforms and your official schedules. Until then, bye UTHRE, she said before she hurried off, and Lelouch quickly lowered his kind look and grew a serious one. So who are you two really? He asked with a serious tone that made Cecilia laugh a bit. Oh my, ever so defensive. Though I can't blame you given my new appearance. Naruto, if you can be a dear, could you dispel it? Cecilia asked, as Naruto nodded and snapped his fingers, allowing her red hair and violet eyes to turn back to their original green and golden amber. Now do you remember me? I'm the girl from Shinjuku, but you can call me CC, Cecilia said, watching, as Lelouch's eyes widened and he took a slight step back. You're alive. he asked before Cecilia nodded and sat down on the back of the couch as Naruto leaned against it beside her. Yes, as it will take more than a gunshot to kill me. More importantly though, how are you enjoying your new power? She asked with a smirk as Lelouch seemingly calmed down and activated his Geass in his left eye. So it really was you who granted this power to me, he said, covering his eye with his hand before lowering it and looking towards them as his Geass deactivated. Dissatisfied? She asked with a slight frown before he shook his head. On the contrary, I'm grateful. It's going to allow me to speed up my schedule for obliterating Britannia tremendously, he said, as Cecilia smirked a bit while Naruto frowned slightly, but shook it off, given Britannia was a monster. If you are the one who gave me my power, then who is he? Does he too have this power? Lelouch asked, quickly wondering if this man besides CC could be a powerful ally in the future, or if he was along for the ride. I'm a fellow contractor of hers, my power is different, but we have the same goals more or less. I'm a soldier, a fighter, and I believe I'll be able to help you immensely, Naruto said, staring Lelouch in the eyes, as he activated his Rin Sharingan, and stood up before he started to walk towards him. So tell me Lelouch, what do you plan to do now? He asked, curious, as to what path this boy will go down. Thanks for watching my video, leave a like if you enjoyed my video, and also do consider subscribing to my channel for more awesome